Metropole TVKE across all your social media platforms. I am at Kiagasimba 2146 as your SMS line. This is your economic review. All right, listed Safaricoms share combined investor wealth at the Nairobi Securities Exchange, NSA, has now risen to a high of 60.2% on a sustained price rally, further highlighting its importance to the Nairobi boost. Now, the valuation has risen by 84 billion since the year started, closing trading on Monday at a 1 shilling and 45 trillion. Now, that represents a 58.7% jump at the end of December last year, or a 42.5% 2 years ago. Its share price closed at 36, and it has been now all the way up to yesterday, as of Monday, representing a 6.13% on year-to-date, maintaining a trend that started late last year on news that the Central Bank of Kenya had ended the zero rating of M-Pesa transactions of up to 1,000 shillings. And if you look at where we are in terms of their trading, you actually see they have been amongst the top movers and the top traders, clocking in at almost 8.3 million shares traded on an average since the year started. All right, let's talk about that therefore. I want to bring you in, Collins, on that. It's no surprising news that, well, they have been there for quite some time.
Totally, and I think one of the reasons why Safaricom has consistently done good is because of its M-Pesa and because of M-Shwari,
yes,
the money lending facility that they offer. And I think also there's always been increased customer network for Safaricom.
Yes.
And so even with the zero transaction cost that they effected due to COVID and all that as they are packaged to people, I still think there's that long-term prospect of subscribers to M-Pesa that is making Safaricom to be where it is.
Yes. All right, Reginald, let me bring you in on that. I'll be coming back to you, Collins, on that as well. But Reginald, let me bring you in on that. I mean, well, it's this attribution of what the Central Bank of Kenya did in terms of running away from the zero rating of transactions up to 1,000 shillings. Well, I don't think that would have a bigger impact, really, because either way, Safaricom was turning in volumes during the coronavirus pandemic.
If you look at the statistics of what that measure actually did to the high-end part of the transactions,
yes,
that did not change much. If you actually look at the figures, the transactions, because the transactions below 1,000 make already majority of the transactions that Safaricom makes. What you were hoping to see with the pandemic and people going cashless is an increase of transactions greater than 1,000. And if you look at most reports that have come out, there's been not that much of an increase in that area.
Yes.
So I think, yeah, Safaricom has done well for itself, but I think we might just be getting to a period where we are plateauing, so to speak. Because if you look at the growth of M-Pesa, which has been the growth of their revenue, really, because voice revenue has been stagnant for a while. The year 2015-2016, M-Pesa grew by like 27%. 2017-2018 dropped to 25%. 2019 to 2020, M-Pesa revenue only grew by 12%. So it might be trending to a point. It cannot continue growing at those rates. It will reach a point where it's plateauing, and I think it's about to reach that point. It's going to plateau the M-Pesa revenue. And my main worry with the Safaricom price will go up because honestly, if you want a most liquid counter on the NSE, you only have Safaricom.
Yes.
If you want a company that is trying to eke out some profits, it is only Safaricom.
Yes.
But unfortunately, even if you look at how they've been making their net profit in the last 3 years, it has been a drastic drop in expenses, other expenses that have dropped from 10% 3 years ago in terms of their increase. They only grew by 3%. So they've managed expenses but not really grown revenues that much. And if you then go to their balance sheet and you look at their property, plant and equipment, have they improved their infrastructure in the last 3 years, like their network infrastructure? If you look at the balance sheet, it doesn't look that way. They have a capital working in progress of 35 billion. We're not sure what that is actually working on. But from an infrastructure of 249 billion, fixed depreciation, it has been gradually reducing now to around 61 61 billion. Then if you look at intellectual property, intangible assets, there were no major improvements there in terms of additions to it. So my worry is Safaricom going to gradually become the biggest company in the country because of the large amount of revenue, the liquidity they have, but they are dinosaur now when it comes to innovation. We've been talking about M-Pesa for the last 10, 12 years. Honestly, you cannot run a business on one innovation for the last. They need to now start coming up with something completely new for their next phase of growth.
Yes.
If that doesn't happen, they will also ground to a halt.
Yes, Reginald, but we do know that they have a regional interest as well. If they don't come up with anything new here, they could be introducing themselves somewhere else. So they continue having that sort of hold that they have in the region.
Let me ask you, Simba.
Yes.
You think the other areas will be as relaxed as Kenya? Ethiopia has already refused to give them mobile money.
Yes.
And that's the only reason that they will enter Ethiopia, because there are other players that are there.
Yes.
Safaricom is big in Kenya, but it's not big in Africa in terms of telecoms.
Do they have to, Reginald, I'm sorry to cut you short. Do they have to worry about anything if they're controlling 99% of business-to-business transactions in the country?
That's what I'm saying. If they don't start getting the high volume transactions on M-Pesa, the revenue for M-Pesa will plateau. If the revenue for M-Pesa plateaus at 85, let's say even if it grows to 90 billion to match the revenue for voice, and it plateaus there, where are they going to get income apart from that then? But everything else might be increased. They now have to start doing cost cutting. Look, for example, their staff numbers have dropped. From 2019 to 2020 by close to 500, 600 staff people. So they'll be managing costs to continue with the profit after tax, so to speak. So my point is, if they're not innovative in terms of coming up with new innovations or acquisitions, look at people like Facebook. When the revenues were plateauing, they started buying WhatsApp, Google bought YouTube, and all that stuff. Was you reach a point where your revenue plateaus, and to grow it further from there, you now start need to looking for aggressive ways of acquiring new revenue streams. Look at Equity Bank. As much as the Kenyan market is very unbanked, they realized that the formal sector is only 2 million people. So the number of people that they're going to bank is actually limited. They had to start looking for acquisitions outside of Kenya to try and increase revenues. But someone will ask, why do they leave Kenya when there are 42 million people and they only have 2 million bank accounts or 3 million bank accounts as equity? Why not increase their bank accounts in Kenya to 10 million? It is not possible because the ones that they can formally bank are only 3 million. So they have to now go to DRC, go out there. Even insurance companies are trying to go out there to get additional revenue. It will not be that easy for Safaricom to do the same, considering their parent owner, Vodacom, is already in these countries. So Safaricom can't go into a country where Vodacom already is. And Airtel, in some countries, already has the market, Nigerian market, Zambian market, Malawi market. So as I'm saying, if they are not innovative inside the Kenyan market, innovative around M-Pesa, then Safaricom revenues will plateau at some point.
You stand right now this morning, what would you say would be the worry for Safaricom? I mean, the numbers look good, as originally saying, but what would you say would be their worry in 2021 as they start with 60.2% of NSE wealth?
And I want to agree with what Reginald has said.
Yes.
And if there's any big lesson that we take from last year is anything can happen, really. And so we need to be prepared. For Safaricom, they really need to look at diversification of even their services. If there's one fear that Safaricom, or rather one threat that Safaricom is going to face this year, is our government.
Yes.
Our government that is so hell-bent on trying to raise resources and revenue at looking at any other opportunity to see how they can swindle money out of people. I think the biggest problem that Safaricom will face is heavy taxation from our government. Now that the government has realized Safaricom is doing greatly, and you've seen all the manner of introduction that you're having, the digital tax that you're having, they are looking at how there was a proposal on how to double tax Safaricom, one as a lending company and equally as a telco. All those proposals, I think they're all geared towards trying to see how much more can we milk Safaricom. And I agree, Safaricom needs to look beyond M-Pesa. Don't just sit down and think that that M-Pesa is doing good,
yes,
that other telcos are sleeping, and so that it means that you've dominated the market here. I mean, there's a possible threat of all these other telcos coming together, forming a bigger merger, and coming to counter you.
Yes.
But then I think that Safaricom should look beyond just M-Pesa.
Pretty much. All right. Now, Reginald, let me bring you in on that as well. Yes, we are celebrating this new 60.2% of NSE wealth. But there's a but, Reginald. What outlook does that give our market if one company, if one blue chip is controlling more than, I would say that they're now getting close to 3/4, Reginald. What does that mean? Does it sort of, what sort of sentiment does it give to any investor looking outside in what's really talking about the Kenyan bulls?
Just before I answer that, something also that we need to be worried about is if Safaricom are paying out 50 billion, 60 billion in dividends.
Yes.
That's also a sign to tell you that they've not found anything worthwhile to actually invest in to give them a return. They are better off just giving their shareholders back their money. But 60 billion can do quite a lot in terms of research and development and innovation. So it is also a worry. Sometimes people are happy with companies that pay big dividends, but it is also a sign that they have not found any investable project to put in that money that will generate them more revenue. So that's also a very red flag that you need to watch there. I'm ashamed of the people who are celebrating that Safaricom is 62% of the Nairobi Stock Exchange, because that is a crisis. I think the guys at the NSC and I think even CMA, some heads have to roll. You can't have a market that has one stock, literally one stock, considering the banking stocks are out of the equation this year because the crisis of last year will hit them properly this year. You literally have one stock that every foreigner just knows. If you want to invest in the NSC, you go invest in Safaricom. The danger of that is not even just for the NSC as a market, as for a country. Do we have a concentration risk in Safaricom? If anything happens to Safaricom today, it will take down the economy of the country. It will take down the whole informal sector. It will take down billions of shillings in terms of money, in terms of M-Pesa and stuff like that. And the question is, as a regulators, they need to be sitting and thinking, do we have a serious concentration risk in that we have one corporate that is literally generating revenue for the government, running your payment system, unfortunately, literally running your payment system. If M-Pesa goes down, how many businesses are going to suffer? Even if it goes down for an hour, how many businesses will suffer in that hour? How much do we lose? What is the backup if M-Pesa goes down in terms of transactions? So I think it is actually a policy issue that needs to come in. Yes, we've given Safaricom a free hand, M-Pesa a free hand to innovate and go, but I think there's a point in time regulation now needs to come and protect the economy. Not to stifle innovation, but to protect the economy.
Reginald, but you asked that. I mean, CMA gave us these headlines last year, and also when you talk to NSC, they're like, well, but that's exactly what can they do? What sort of regulation can be extended for us to say, well, they are not really 3/4 of NSC wealth?
No, there's no regulation. NSC just have to do their job. How do you get more participation in the Nairobi Stock Exchange so that all the other counters are liquid, so that Simba is buying DTB, Simba is buying Longhorn and trading on Longhorn, that people stop putting money in government paper, because you don't create money, you don't create wealth in bonds.
Yes.
Wealth is created investing in ideas and investing in companies. Warren Buffett did not make money by buying government securities in the US. Elon Musk did not make money by saying, I will sit down and buy treasuries, fixed deposits and all. He invested in an idea. Our markets need to come to a point where we realize, how do we channel money? How do we allocate resources to the SME sector so that they have the capital and the skills they need to grow from being an SME? How do we bring them into the Nairobi Stock Exchange with the transparency that is needed, with the governance that is needed for people to be confident enough to be able to actually invest in them? So if we are not getting new listings, if we are not allocating capital properly, the banks are not allocating capital properly, everything is just going to the government, pensions are allocating to the government, insurance companies are allocating to the government, then where is money that is actually going to go into equities, into private equity, into new organizations for them to grow up? So if we don't do that, then Safaricom will remain dominant for the near future until the debt also collapse and they go down with the whole market.
Kazutu and Collins Watch, thank you very much for taking your time this morning to speak to us here at Metropole Television. We value you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
All right, and on that note, That's what we have for you today.